The following is a presentation of Learfield IMG College.
This is Duck Insider.
Give it to Verdell. He's got the first down and gone. Duck fans start celebrating. Oregon is the 2019 Pac-12 champion. The 2020 Rose Bowl champion.
Richardson, another open three. Good. Duarte dribbles and slams with the right hand. For the third time in the last 5 years, the Ducks are Pac-12 champions. Outright champs.
Foley three. Good. Foley ball. Out Shelley. Three ball. Good. Regular season champions and now Pac-12 tournament champions.
Welcome to Duck Insider.
We're just getting started.
This is Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield IMG College. Presented by On Point Community Credit Union. Better banking, local solutions. Live from the Country Financial Studio, here's Joey Mack.
It is Friday. So excited that it's Friday. Isn't everybody always excited when Friday comes around? And we've got a busy weekend of sports, some Oregon connections for you. Caroline English just wrapped up her round. I want to tell you about that, the Pro Duck in action, which is always pretty cool. We'll talk about that. I think that she's in really good shape for the weekend. In fact, I just got a text from Terry Johns. Terry Johns just texted me and said, hey, Caroline English just wrapping up. Even par was one of the best rounds today. All right, Caroline English. We'll talk about that on our weekend schedule for you ahead. Jordan Kent is going to join us, the new TV voice of the Blazers, a Duck, an Oregon Athletics Hall of Famer, which might actually be the best way to introduce him. Because, I mean, if you're a Hall of Famer, that should be like the first thing that people reference about you, right? He's an Oregon Athletics Hall of Famer, inducted 2 years ago. We'll talk with Jordan Kent coming up. Going to talk Ducks, going to talk Blazers, going to talk college athletics. I'm going to ask him what advice he would have for college athletes right now facing all this uncertainty. Jordan Kent's going to join us. Your Facebook comments and questions. We're going to talk a little bit about, well, a few things about volleyball and soccer that are practicing. We have images to prove it. Well, they're practicing in a safe workout manner. This is important to note. You'll notice that they're wearing masks and doing everything the right way. We'll tell you a little bit more about that. The NCAA has made a determination on championships for the fall, when they could be played, and eligibility questions that we've been talking about over the last few weeks. We have that for you on the show today. I'll talk a little bit about the NBA, and again, talking to Jordan Kent. I also have some thoughts on the weekend schedule for the Pro Ducks and some Oregon connections for you around Major League Baseball, which will be kind of fun to pay attention to. The annual review of the NBA Draft Lottery, where I still have some issues with it. Anybody who's heard me on this subject before, I think I'm actually in the minority. I want to talk about that, where Peyton Pritchard may end up after the draft lottery was finalized last night. And, yeah, any of your comments and questions. Happy Friday to everybody joining us. We do have some news. About 15, 20 minutes ago, if you're live with us in the 1 o'clock hour, the NCAA has made a determination on championships and eligibility. We'll begin with the statement, as the Division I Board of Directors has adopted a few protections due to COVID-19 for student athletes, and Division I is working toward hosting fall championships in the spring. Denise Trouth, who is the acting chair of the NCAA D1 Board of Directors, said, quote, "We want to provide opportunities for student athletes whenever possible. We understand it will be complicated and different, and we're not certain how it will look, but we believe it's important to try to give students that championship experience." And what she's referring to is that the Division I Board of Directors is moving toward hosting fall championships in the spring. Board members caution that fall championships should be played in the spring only if they can be conducted safely and in accordance with federal, state, and local guidelines. The board acknowledged that its actions pertain to fall championships only, and that the final decision on bracket sizes and composition will be approved by the board. That's important. I want to come back to that. Some of those protections that the NCAA has voted to exercise, the first is eligibility. All fall sports student athletes will receive both an additional year of eligibility and an additional year in which to complete it. This coming from the NCAA Board of Directors today. Student athletes who do not enroll full-time during the 2020 fall term have flexibility in the progress toward degree requirements that must be met for eligibility in future terms. All right, so what that means is even if you don't enroll full-time, if you're a student athlete, you have more flexibility in terms of requirements that you would normally have in order to maintain your eligibility, because usually there's a minimum amount of credits and classes that you have to be enrolled in to maintain that eligibility for a student athlete. The next protection is financial aid. Schools are prohibited from canceling or reducing athletic scholarships if a college athlete in any sport opts out due to COVID-19. Makes sense. The financial aid of fall sports senior student athletes who take advantage of the additional year of eligibility and extended clock will not count against team limits in 2021-2022. So that expands the roster a little bit with the financial aid piece. Notification. This is one of the other protections the NCAA announced today that they are approving. Schools are required to review current insurance coverage for all student athletes who are competing this fall, inform student athletes about the risk of classification of their sport as outlined in the resocialization of collegiate sport document, inform student athletes how the mandates in the resocialization of college sport document are being met at their campus. In other words, follow the rules. Do your job. And participation. Schools are prohibited from requiring student athletes to waive legal rights regarding COVID-19 as a condition of athletics participation. So those are the four that have been approved by the NCAA Board of Directors, some protections for student athletes due to COVID-19. I think all of those make sense. It's just what we've been talking about, what the D3, D2, D1 councils all said, and now the Division I Board of Directors is noting that. Members directed the council to ensure that these impacted fall sports are basically taken care of. Now, I do want to come back to something that I think is really important, that board members cautioned that fall championships should be played in the spring only if it can be done safely, and they also acknowledged that the size of brackets for these championships could change and may change. And again, if they've already said that if 50% of a sports teams are not competing because they individually decide to opt out, then there won't be a championship no matter what. And I would imagine that that's going to continue into the spring. So, look, all of this is kind of detailed and nuanced, and if you really get into the weeds on it, it makes sense. It's just the right thing to do to take care of the student athletes, especially in this unprecedented time. But what the competition's going to look like in the fall, we don't know. What it's going to look like in the spring, we don't know. And we also don't know if the spring is feasible. But we can all do our part to make sure that the spring can be feasible. Get your mask. I got my mask. I think we need to put a mask on Richard. Why not? Richard, for those of you who don't know, is our mannequin who's here in studio. I think Richard needs a mask. Okay, we're going to make that happen. We're going to get Richard a mask. I'll think of something. It's got to be appropriate, you know. No, I think it could be Star Wars. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But anyway, I know that's kind of a lot of the detailed stuff that maybe you can kind of gloss over, but some big takeaways. We don't know for sure what the size of brackets will look like moving forward with fall championships now. D1 Board of Directors is officially kind of endorsing, if you will, a move to the spring. So we can all sort of start to plan for that if we haven't been already, which we have. And I think that it's also important to note that it won't – the additional year of eligibility and extended clock will not count against team limits next year. That means that you could have a much larger roster for all these sports next year compared to any other year. Which makes sense, right? If you have everybody staying around for next year, and I'm sure that a lot of student athletes won't. That's the other side of this. Some student athletes won't exercise that, and that's fine. You know, we've seen some from Oregon baseball have already said, you know, they're going to move on. They're not going to take that extra year. And I think that makes sense too. It's where you are in your individual life. So anyway, that's sort of the big update today. You'll probably see a lot of news about that. And I know that again, it's the part of sports that you don't necessarily want to have to go through and break all those things down, but I thought that it was important to do so on the show as we kick things off. Meanwhile, I want to ask fans, and we've done this a couple times throughout this week, we're working on our programming for Saturdays. You know, we understand that our affiliate network and all of our great affiliate radio stations across the Oregon Sports Network, they're all wondering what's going to happen for Saturdays without football at Autzen Stadium. And so we've talked about a few different things. You know, do we do a classic broadcast where Jerry and Jorgie give their thoughts of what they were thinking at the time. And one thing fans we've thought about doing is having you vote. Which games would you want to hear throughout the fall? And have Jerry and Jorgie kind of go through the commentary, and we'd keep you up to date on things happening around Oregon athletics as well every Saturday. I thought that was kind of a cool idea. That's something that I'd want to hear. Another option that Muriel suggested this yesterday, what if we just played last year all over again? It's a pretty good year. Pretty good year. Maybe we skip Auburn and Arizona State. I mean, it gives context to the season, I guess if you're going to listen to the whole season, it gives some context as to what happened, but I didn't have very much fun interviewing Mario Cristobal post-game after the game in Arlington. It's not technically in Dallas. It was in Arlington. I don't know. Fans, let us know if you have thoughts. We're all ears. We're right there with you. We want some sports. We want some Ducks. We're right there with you. We want to be able to do that. And so, yeah, throw some suggestions our way. Coming up, we're going to talk with Oregon Athletics Hall of Famer Jordan Kent. Also, volleyball got to work. Great seeing some images on their social media channels of them in action. So, look, this is important for volleyball and for soccer. They're able to work out, but as Lisa Peterson was discussing yesterday, there are certain things that they can't do. Like you can't have a joust at the net. A joust in volleyball terminology is two people right at the net blocking each other, basically. So you can't do that kind of stuff, but they can still do some drills and some individual stuff. And as you'll see, for those of you who are watching the show, all wearing their masks. Kind of cool to see Oregon volleyball back in action. Maybe we'll talk with some of those student athletes. Probably will. And Matt Ulmer as well. Probably that entire coaching staff, actually. They have a good time. Meanwhile, Oregon soccer, similar boat. They're back working out. Graham Abel had his mask on, ready to go. They posted all of these pictures to Twitter of some of the workouts that Oregon soccer is doing. As they've got some skill development to do now too, and some time to do it, and they're doing it safely. It was cool to see those images and just to see the Ducks working out again, which I was happy to see today. Really happy to see today. Well, last night didn't go as planned for the Portland Trail Blazers. I think Duck fans are, for the most part, united in saying, like, hey, let's go Blazers. Let's go State of Oregon. We're going to talk to the man who's on the call on the TV side of things, Jordan Kent, coming up. We actually talked to Jordan a little bit earlier today to make sure that we could spend the proper amount of time talking with him. We got it over the next couple segments for you. A great conversation with Jordan Kent, talking about his Hall of Fame career with the Ducks, what's it been like calling games for the Blazers now and the team itself, and also advice that he would give to college athletes that are facing all this uncertainty right now. And I think you're going to want to hear what Jordan had to say. Always a great interview. I'm Joey Mack. More Duck Insider presented by On Point Community Credit Union coming up after this. We're back inside the Country Financial Studio with Jordan Kent next on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
From the weight room to the classroom, on the field and off it, On Point proudly supports University of Oregon athletics because student athletes do so much more than bring us pride on game day. They bring our entire community together in Eugene and all across Oregon. So whether you're watching the game in the stadium, at home, or at your favorite local business, their success makes all of us stronger. On Point Community Credit Union. Join in. OnPointCU.com. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
After 2 years of construction, my wife and I finally moved into our dream home. So when a bathtub fixture broke, causing major water damage, I was glad we had the home insurance protection we needed. How do you know your home is protected? Talk to a Country Financial rep like me, Nick Simon. We can help you understand your options and select coverages to meet your needs. Then if something happens to your home, you won't have any surprises. Need the right coverage for your home but not sure where to start? Visit TakeSimpleSteps.com or contact a local Country representative.
Don't go anywhere. Duck Insider continues after these messages on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
Learfield IMG College.
Whoa, long time no see. It's me, the Rock t-shirt in the back of your closet. Dude, remember? You crowd surfed in me, man. But you haven't worn me in like forever. I get it, you're retired, but I still got some rock left in me. So take me to Goodwill, where I can really make a difference.
Your donations to Goodwill create jobs, training programs, and education assistance for people in your community. To find your nearest donation center, go to goodwill.org. Donate stuff, create jobs. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
I wasn't prepared to be a caregiver to Mom. I had no idea how hard it would be and what I would need to know. Things I never thought of, like how to improve her mood and ways for me to stay positive. Luckily, I found the Caregiving Resource Center from AARP. It had articles about the basics, but also information about the hurdles I was facing.
Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving. Articles, tips, and tools to help you both care for your loved one and care for yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Duck Insider, presented by On Point Community Credit Union. Joey Mack inside the Country Financial Studio. And joining us via Zoom, he's got the best Zoom backdrop that we've seen so far this year. It's Oregon Athletics Hall of Famer Jordan Kent joining us. Jordan, I could have introduced you as about 50 different things, but I decided to go with Hall of Famer. I feel like that's probably at the top of your list these days, right?
You know, it probably is as far as my Duck heritage goes. I mean, I remember back in 2018 when you get that letter, that invitation, and it really just changes your life and kind of solidifies everything you did as an athlete. And it's something that they can never take away from you. So for me, absolutely works as far as the introduction. It's not on my business card, but that works for me.
Why not? Why not? Get it on the business card.
It's a little self-serving if you were to hand that to somebody and be like, hey, by the way, I'm a Hall of Famer. Don't know if you heard or not, but it's something that I think Duck fans and people that I'm familiar with certainly understand and appreciate, and something that'll be really cool to take my kids back when they get a little bit older and can understand what that actually means. Walk them through the hall and say, hey, your dad used to have it, believe it or not.
I think you'll still have it, at least in some capacity for a while. Jordan Kent joining us. I joke about Hall of Famer, but that's a heck of an honor, and it was really fun. I got to say, for me and Jerry have the honor of emceeing and hosting that event. And I mean, Jordan should have just gotten up there with a microphone when he got inducted and just done it himself. I mean, that we should have just gotten out of your way is how I've always joked about it. But I digress. I could introduce you also as the TV voice of the Blazers right now, which, first of all, congratulations on that. I know that had to be a fun thing to be able to take on, but also probably a lot of work, I'd imagine, right?
Yeah, it certainly was. And it was a funny story. It was about June 30th, and I'm upstairs just playing choo-choos and dump trucks with my son. And I get a text from my boss, Jeff Curtin, director of broadcasting. And the text was, hey, are you available to talk? And in this day and age, that could mean one or two things. And so you're thinking, well, I had a good run. It was fun while it lasted. And you give him a call, and he lets you know the news that Kevin Calabro decided to retire. And with this NBA restart just around the corner, they need a play-by-play guy, and they felt confident enough in my abilities to keep it internal and let me take the microphone for those games. And I absolutely answered yes, but I knew that it was going to be a lot of work, a lot of prep, especially because I haven't had those reps as a basketball play-by-play. Mm-hmm. Now, esports, all day long, but NBA, not so much. But I really enjoyed the challenge and embraced the challenge. And ever since I've had a chance to do it, now that I've had about a dozen games underneath my belt, I love it. And I continue to learn more and more each game, and just very humbled by the team trusting me and giving me this opportunity to do it. And, I really want to thank the entire team for giving me some incredible games to call also, because that makes things pretty easy for me. But it's been a crazy ride, and it just kind of sums up 2020 for a lot of folks where you just really can't predict what's going to happen this year. And did not see this happening back in January. I'll tell you that much for sure.
Well, I'm glad that it worked out for you, and I've really enjoyed listening. And you and Lamar seem to just have a lot of fun together. So I have multiple follow-ups here, so bear with me. Let's start with you and Lamar. So you got a Duck and a Beav on the call for the Blazers, which has got to just be for state of Oregon people one of the coolest things ever. So, I mean, just what's it like working with Lamar, and do you have to throw some jabs in there with the Ducks and Beavs every now and then?
The thing with Lamar is he's one of the coolest dudes you'll ever meet. And he's absolutely top shelf, as I like to say. He's one of the best in the business at what he does. And the fact that we had a chance to play against each other and work with each other over the last 4 years, as far as him doing the analyst role and me being in the studio tossing to him and Kevin, that continued to build our friendship and our relationship. And so our chemistry, I was really impressed with how quickly we were just able to develop that into these games. And now it just feels very natural. And as far as him being a Beaver, me being a Duck, we've decided to sort of just keep quiet on that, because it is a little shtick we could have for a long time, but we don't want to overwhelm people with that. And so I think we more so take the approach of, hey, we're two Oregon guys. We come from this state. We spend significant time in this state. we're just like the fans watching Trailblazers basketball. We know each corner of this state. We appreciate this team. We appreciate this part of the country. We understand we're a small kind of underdog market. We're in this with you. And that's really been the cool part about working alongside with Lamar. We really feel like we can connect with the fans.
Well, I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, you're both just pros, which is really I think what is the bottom line here. So that it's been awesome to listen to you guys. I've really enjoyed it. All right, now broadcaster to broadcaster, you've had to call games remotely. That's something that I haven't done, Jordan, and I have a feeling that I might be doing it here sooner than later. You got any advice, broadcaster to broadcaster? What's it like calling them remotely like that?
Well, the biggest thing is you want to just wait a beat on every time there's a call, because you're not sitting courtside. When there's a whistle, you don't get a chance to see that camera angle necessarily where it's the official giving you the clear call and calling the foul on somebody. You almost have to wait for your live stats to update with who the foul's on, but you want to relay that information to the fan. So if a whistle blows, you say, all right, whistle on the play. Let's go ahead and get this sorted out. And it looks like a foul on so-and-so. And you just don't get that live information you would get if you're just sitting courtside and you see it immediately and you see the official point the numbers up, or you miss some of that stuff that happens in the atmosphere of the game. And so you just want to be a little bit more patient unless you're absolutely certain you can identify what's happening on the court or identify a player. The other thing is you miss out on the emotion of the crowd. And so when you get amped up in a studio, it might seem like a little overkill when it is a big play, but it translates very well to the broadcast. And that took me a couple of games to sort of understand, because, you know, Joey, when you're there and you're in the arena and a big play happens and you've got 10,000 people behind you roaring, it's easy to get your emotional level up and bring that energy. But when it's just in a kind of sterile studio, you really have to step up yourself to make sure that you're giving the just due emotion to the moment that happened on the court. So those would be my two biggest things I would tell anybody that is getting ready to call a game remotely from a studio, that you are removed from the action as far as not being there, but you can still do a very quality broadcast.
I'm with you. Well, it's good advice, because I think I'm going to have to be doing this sooner rather than later. You know, I'll tell you too, Jordan, you talk about you kind of lose your emotion sometimes. I've called a game or two where I think everybody in the building could hear me. That's happened a time or two. Not at Matthew Knight Arena, but it's happened a time or two. So I know what you mean with the raising of the emotion. Jordan Kent is our guest, Oregon Hall of Famer. Let's talk a little bit about the Blazers themselves, if you will. You mentioned that you've had some great games to call. You absolutely have. Just your thoughts on the run so far. Last night didn't go according to plan, but we still got a full series left.
Yeah, it's been an incredible run by this team. And I think really what it's done is it's solidified the blueprint for this team and the way that it's been built. You know, the first half of the season, you had so many injuries, and it was so hard for this team to get on rhythm. And you look at some of the new players they brought in as well, too. And chemistry takes time, but you're playing the majority of the season without 3 of your 5 starters. If you look at Rodney Hood, Yusuf Nurkic, and Zach Collins, you get to the bubble, you now have Nurk and Zach healthy, and you see immediately the dividends that they pay, especially Nurk and the way that he impacts the game on both ends of the floor. And keep in mind, Portland's doing this without 2 of their best wing defenders, in Trevor Ariza and Rodney Hood. Now, Gary Trent Jr. certainly stepped up, and he's been huge as far as taking the toughest defensive assignment on that end of the floor. But you're missing 2 guys that are both 6'6", 6'7", that can defend multiple positions, and that can go a really long way. And guys that can also create their own shot and hit the open 3. And so as good as this team looks now, they're going to be even better next year when they just get even healthier. And then, of course, Damian Lillard. It's just silly what he's been doing. And I hope we get a chance to sort of pause in Portland, in the state of Oregon, and just appreciate his greatness on a historic level, because up until maybe this week, he hasn't gotten the national hype that he deserves for the caliber of player that he is and the list that he's on. You're starting to see some of that because all the eyes are on the bubble, and he's finally getting a chance to showcase things with the national audience, seeing him consistently. And I really just hope that we can appreciate the fact that he's going to go down as one of the all-time greats. It's simple. He's going to be one of those guys, Joey, that has a street named after him when this is all over with. Let's just be honest here. I know 10, 15 years from now, we'll be all turning down Lillard Lane or something as we head to the Moda Center. But all in all, when you look at the makeup of this team, they have the best backcourt in the NBA, in my opinion. And with Dame and CJ, you know, it was rare what happened last night. Every single player had an off night for the most part, and that's just going to happen sometimes in this league. but they have a chance to hang in there with anybody. And I think as long as they continue to get healthy and they continue to shoot the ball the way that they're capable of shooting, they can play with anybody.
You touched on it a little bit, just keys for the Blazers. I was going to ask you, how do you beat this Lakers team? I mean, they're pretty good, don't get me wrong, but I think Portland's a lot better than an 8 seed. And in a traditional season, I think we probably would have seen them climb up 6, 7, whatever they would have ended up at. I mean, keys in your mind to take down this Lakers team?
Well, number one, you got to give the Lakers the credit they deserve. There's a reason why. They're the number 1 seed in the West. And you look at everything that LeBron and Anthony Davis do to command the attention of your entire defense. And when it comes to Anthony Davis, you got to make him a jump shooter, and you got to try and keep him out of the paint. And so you saw the Blazers at different times showing double teams when he was catching the ball in the post. But last night's a tough night. When he's shooting nearly 65, 70% from the field and knocking down threes, there's really nobody in this league that can defend him. And you just tip your hat to that. And then when it comes to LeBron, he needs to see multiple defenders, but you can't overcommit. As soon as you overcommit on a double team, he's so good with his passing and his vision to find the open guy. And if the Lakers are hitting their open threes like they did yesterday as well, again, they're a very tough team to beat. There's a reason why they're the number 1 seed. So defensively, you just have to limit LeBron and AD in their impact. Make the shots difficult for them. I would force LeBron to be a shot maker rather than a facilitator. With LeBron, he obviously has a lot of size, a lot of girth. He can get into the paint, but force him to hit some of those difficult jumpers that he maybe doesn't want to necessarily go to instead of trying to feed a teammate open for a good look. So defensively, that's the focus. Offensively, if you're the Blazers, you want to get a little bit more ball movement. I think yesterday, a lot of the shots that the Blazers were taking just weren't going in, a lot of those one-on-one shots. But if you can get some more ball movement and get the Lakers defense to rotate, the inside-out action that the Blazers use, the high screen and roll action where they feed Jusuf Nurkic and then he hits an open guy, that's the bread and butter for the Blazers. And if you can get to that, regardless of the defensive look the Lakers are giving you, I think that really starts to open up a lot of things for the Blazers offensively.
You talk about Nurk. I mean, it's just such a cool story, and just seeing him come back the way that he has. And could you just touch on that a little bit? I just think it's always cool to remind people just what he means to this team, and both on and off the floor, and the story that he's developing into. It's a heck of a story that we hope ends pretty happily this year, too.
Well, it might be too late in the season for him to get NBA's Comeback Player of the Year, but he's certainly in the running for it. And you look at just the horrific leg injury he suffered back in March of 2019, which feels like 7 years ago.
God, it does.
Being out of the game for nearly 15, 16 months, and then to come back in and to play as well as he did during these bubble games, it just shows you that this is a man that's determined to be a great player. And he has really vaulted himself into the conversation of top 5 centers in the league with what he's been able to do as far as, once again, defensively, what he can do, but then also offensively. And then you look over just the last 48 hours, or I should say the last week. For the Blazers, they're getting set for that seeding game against the Memphis Grizzlies, that play-in game. And he gets news a couple hours before tip-off that his grandmother passed away from COVID, somebody he was really close with. And he comes out and just gives an unbelievably spirited effort and just a monster game to help the Blazers punch their ticket to the playoffs. And that right there is just one example of the adversity this team has had to overcome this entire season at multiple points, and really over the last couple of years, the adversity. And for this Blazers team, I say it again, the blueprint is there. Last year, they make that run to the Western Conference Finals without Jusuf Nurkic. And I truly believe if he's on that team last year, they're going to the finals. And then this year, you're the 8th seed and you get into the playoffs after a very rough start. Now you're in it. You're in a series with the Lakers where you've shown that you can beat them. And so it's really nice to see this team finally getting healthy and getting a chance to sort of realize the potential that they've always believed that they've had.
Our guest, Jordan Kent, we talked to him a little bit earlier. We're going to continue with him coming up in just a moment. His advice for college athletes facing all this uncertainty right now, I think you're going to want to stick around for that. Jordan with some great insight. Jackson's Food Store is a proud sponsor of the University of Oregon Ducks. Stop by your local neighborhood Jackson's for all your essentials. Go Ducks and head to Jackson's. I'm Joey Mack. We're going to head to a timeout. When we return, more with Jordan Kent. It's Duck Insider, presented by On Point Community Credit Union, inside the Country Financial Studio on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
As my family continued to grow, I realized I'd have to replace my beloved Jeep with something that has, well, more seats. I'm Jason Hines, Country Financial Rep and father of 7. Whether you're upgrading from your sporty ride with no room for a car seat or finally replacing your well-loved beater that still has a cassette player, you'll want the right protection for your new car. Work with a Country Financial rep like me and get the protection you need at a price you can afford. Learn more at TakeSimpleSteps.com or contact a local Country representative.
Mountain Dew Zero Sugar presents an original that's now maybe even better. Humpty Dumpty.
Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a delicious Mountain Dew Zero Sugar with the same refreshing taste as the original, but with zero sugar. And all the king's horses, all the king's men couldn't get Humpty to try a different zero sugar soda again.
Mountain Dew Zero Sugar. As good as the original, maybe even better.
Duck Insider continues after this timeout on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
All right, everybody in the car. Let's go.
What are we gonna do first when we get there, Mom? Go for a hike?
Sure.
What about canoeing? Can we go canoeing too?
I don't see why.
How long does it take to get to the forest?
It's not that far, sweetie.
Are we there yet?
Yep, we're here.
Already?
It's a short drive from your neighborhood to your naturehood. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a neighborhood park or green space near you. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the U.S. Forest Service.
They say that car crashes happen in slow motion. The reality is that crashes happen fast. There's no time to think and no time to check if your child is in the right car seat. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your kids in the right seat for their age and size? Don't think you know. Know you know. Get more info at safercar.gov/the-right-seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Duck Insider, presented by On Point Community Credit Union. I saw a cool comment from Jack. I remember watching Jordan Kent's dad back in 74, 75. What's happening with Ernie these days? Yeah, last I knew with Coach Kent, he was just kind of enjoying retirement and not coaching with Washington State anymore, so enjoying retirement. And, well, now he's being a grandfather. And as you'll hear coming up with Jordan Kent in just a little bit, going to be grandfather number 2 here from Jordan in just a little while. Yeah, coming up for Jordan Kent, which is pretty cool. We continue our conversation with the Oregon Athletics Hall of Famer, a star in football, men's basketball, track and field. You know, he was the first 3-sport athlete since World War II at Oregon. Impressive athlete, great broadcaster, and a good guy to catch up with. Continuing our conversation with Jordan Kent. Jordan Kent, our guest. Jordan, we're talking Blazers, talking Ducks. I want to go back in time with you a little bit. When you were starring for multiple sports at Oregon, did you ever envision that you'd do broadcasting when you were done competing?
You know, I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen and what my path would be whenever I got done playing because, as you know, a sports career can be very volatile. I think everybody, when they go to college, they envision being a 12 to 15-year vet in the professional league of their choice whenever they get done. And that obviously doesn't work out for everybody. But I just remember being a kid in 3rd and 4th grade, and before we headed out the door for school, it was watching Stuart Scott and Rich Eisen and those guys on SportsCenter when it was on 5 times a day. Right. And I fell in love with those guys, and I remember it was something I'd always thought about wanting to get into. I just didn't know what that path would look like, and I know that I finally had a few opportunities when I was wrapping up my NFL career to hop on a show called Talkin' Ball that used to run on NBC Sports Northwest. And once I got a chance as an analyst to do it one time, when I had my first off season, as I like to say, after my early retirement in the NFL, I just drove up to Portland on my own dime about a dozen times over the course of 6 or 7 months and would do these 10 p.m. shows, Joey. They'd get done at 11. I'd drive back down to Eugene, get home at like 1:15 or something like that, and just try to get the reps. And these were unpaid opportunities. And finally, around August of 2011, they wanted to start a Duck football show. Yep. They asked if I could host. I lied and said yes. And it's just sort of snowballed into this right now. So I would tell any young broadcaster, any opportunity that comes your way, whether or not you believe you can do it, take it, because you just never know what it's going to lead to.
It's good advice. Throw yourself into the frying pan. You don't even ask for someone to throw you in. Just throw yourself right in there. That's the way to do it. I think that's great advice. You know, Jordan, I was going to ask you just a little bit with your perspective on what's going on in the world, and athletics is really just a small part of everything that's going on with COVID and social unrest in the world as well. I mean, what college athletes are facing right now, Jordan, I mean, what advice would you give them in this landscape, just how to navigate everything that's going on right now with so much up in the air?
Yeah, I can imagine a lot of college athletes are in a very difficult position, especially some upperclassmen that are really wondering what the final couple of seasons or final season of their career is going to look like. And my advice to them is just remember, this is a temporary season. And many athletes deal with setbacks where you lose out on seasons. If you think about losing out to seasons based upon injury or what have you. And as difficult as it is to have so many things out of your control, you have to realize those things are out of your control. And you can only handle what you can control yourself. So think about ways that you can continue to stay sharp mentally, stay sharp physically. You have all sorts of time now to work on your craft, to work on a particular skill that maybe you didn't have time to work on during the season just because of the busyness of, training and practices and film and travel and competition. So use this opportunity to really work on some weaknesses and know that this isn't going to be forever. We're not going to go the next 30 years without sports. There's going to eventually come a time where there's a vaccine or viable treatments where we all feel safe enough to get back to normalcy. It'll be time to compete. And those athletes that stayed ready now, that realized, okay, I'm not going to mark an X on my calendar. I'm going to just make the most of every single day and the time and the opportunity I have now. Those will be the athletes that give themselves a tremendous advantage when it does open up. And as long as you can sort of focus on that, just day by day, what's the blessing? What's the gift I have as an athlete? What can I work on to make myself the best that I can be today? Seek that out and work on that, because I promise you the day will come when we will be talking about what it was like having COVID instead of living in this time of trying to navigate it. And when that day comes and we can finally get back to having seasons and having games, having competitions, you better be ready. And so that's just my advice to these athletes. I know it's hard. I get it. It's okay to acknowledge that it's hard, but there will be another side to this. And hopefully it comes sooner rather than later. But don't focus on the end date, the end result, because that's always a moving target, as we know. Just focus on the day-to-day process. Make the most of each day as you get ready for whenever that day is going to be.
That's well said. That's good stuff from Jordan Kent. That's why he's a Hall of Famer right there, ladies and gentlemen. just part of why he's a Hall of Famer. Hey, I got to ask you, and maybe we could end on a lighter note. When are we going to see you on the call for esports again?
It's been terrific working with Nintendo over the last couple of years. We've got a tournament coming up for Splatoon on Sunday, September 13th. Nice. And it's a game where, if you're not familiar with it, it's 2 teams of 4, and you are these characters called Inklings. You're these kids that can turn into squids. And it's basically one team is the color green, one team's the color blue or pink or whatever. And you're shooting ink at one another, trying to sort of control the map and territory while there's these other objectives. It's one of the most enjoyable games I've ever played in my life. And it is a blast. And it's very exciting to watch and to call. So that's coming up here. And so there's always constant training, as I like to say, to get ready for that. And, I oftentimes joke with my wife because she gives me a hard time. She's like, you're the only guy I know on this planet, I feel like, that has to play video games and watch sports for practice and training. I said, hey, sorry, somebody's got to do it right now.
That's right. Scott just said it, Hall of Famer. I mean, it just makes sense. Does your wife play? I mean, does she ever play with you?
We've played a couple games in the past before. She hasn't played any of the competitive ones I do for Nintendo, because those ones are like, you really got to commit to those ones. And we barely even have enough time as it is chasing around our little 2-year-old. But, we'll sit down and we'll play a little game called Overcooked, where you're 2 chefs in the kitchen trying to work on passing lettuce and tomatoes and serving different items back and forth to one another. And she's always been super supportive of this stuff. But, eventually I'm going to have to get my sons ready when they pick up the sticks for the first time and get them introduced to gaming. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start them off old school, like I did. Like, here you go. Here's a controller, 3 hearts and Zelda. Figure it out without a guide. I had to do the same, young man.
That's
instead
right.
of all this stuff nowadays where they sort of hold your hand through the start of a game.
You and I are very similar. My wife loves Overcooked. My wife will kick my rear in every 2-dimensional Mario game that has ever been created. So I hear you. I think that's great. That's the way to do it. You got to start them that way. I love, though, that I feel like, Jordan, you and I are the generation now where it's if you could, the jocks and the dorks kind of are one and the same now, which is kind of a good thing, isn't it?
No, it's so true. And here's the best example I'm going to give you of that. when I was in high school back in 98, 99, that's when Pokemon first came out. Yeah. And I was hooked to the Game Boy games. Well, back then, if you liked Pokemon and you were older than 10, you were basically labeled a loser for the most part. But now, you remember 2016 when Pokemon Go came out and everybody's hopping on board and said, hey, Jordan, you got to check this out. I said, no. I've been with this since day one. I have forgotten more about Pokemon than most people even know. So don't try to tell me that this is the cool new fad. So for me, I think now it's been embraced. Gaming culture, regardless of the type of game that you like, it has been embraced. And it's something that people are very proud about. And it's really cool to see that. And, you know, you go to just sort of this generation growing up, Joey, and that's what's been fascinating to bring this all back to sports with the call for the Blazers being on the younger side of the play-by-play in the NBA. I think it's fair to say when you look at the other 29 positions, there's just different references and different things you can bring up. And I just try to pick up things in my childhood in the 90s that I enjoyed that you try to bring to the basketball court. And it's really cool to see fans getting that now. So I think we threw out, you know, an Office reference the other day or a Nickelodeon Guts climbing the aggro crag reference. And it's really cool to see people get that. And it's this perfect marriage of just sort of this nostalgia and fandom for different things that you try to intertwine and make the game more enjoyable and entertaining by bringing up those references.
You're 100% right. I'm with you 100%. It's a generational thing, and that's why I wanted to ask you about it, because I'm kind of in the same boat in the Pac-12 with the radio play-by-play guys. You know, I said the phrase "level up" once, and someone looked at me like I was nuts. So, you know, but I will say the other side of that is I've picked up a lot of references from Jerry that I probably should have known if I was a little bit older. And you know, you pick those up as you go. Well, Jordan,
put a couple pennies in your loafers on that one.
Yes, exactly. Well, Jordan, I already kept you longer than I said I would, so thanks for taking the time. I wish you the best along the way. Really enjoy listening to you on the Blazers, so good luck the rest of the way. Here's to calling, I don't know, say like 20 more NBA games this year. That sounds pretty good to me.
Hey, works for me. Thanks again for having me. Hope you guys are doing well and can't wait to catch up again soon.
Hey, and Jordan, good luck with the family. I know you got a baby on the way. Good luck. I'll be there sooner than later. I'm going to ask you for some advice on that.
We switched from the 2-1 zone where we overpower and double team. Now it's man-to-man, so wish me luck.
Yeah, just wait till you're outnumbered. That's what my wife always says. Jordan Kent, Oregon Athletics Hall of Famer, voice of the Blazers. Hey, Jordan, thanks for being with us. I appreciate it, buddy.
Anytime.
All right, when we come back, we've got a lot more to get to on Duck Insider. Friday with the weekend schedule coming up back inside the Country Financial Studio next on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
From the weight room to the classroom, on the field and off it, On Point proudly supports University of Oregon athletics because student athletes do so much more than bring us pride on game day. They bring our entire community together in Eugene and all across Oregon. So whether you're watching the game in the stadium, at home, or at your favorite local business, their success makes all of us stronger. On Point Community Credit Union. Join in. OnPointCU.com. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
Welcome back for another episode of ASMR with Alex. Today, we're exploring the delicious, refreshing sounds of Pepsi. Oh, spilled a little there, but don't worry, it's all under control. Now for the best part. Pepsi. That's what I like. Nailed it. My subscriber is gonna love this one.
Locally owned Bigfoot Beverages is proud to support the Oregon Ducks. Go Ducks. Drink Pepsi.
Duck Insider, your home for the latest news on Oregon athletics. This is the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
Okay, man, this is your time. Maybe you didn't choose this, but you're here now. You're gonna go out there and be an all-star caregiver. Cook, clean, be there emotionally and physically. You gotta dig deeper. Drive them to physical therapy, doctor's appointments, because that's what caregivers do. Don't give up. Show the world that you're tougher than tough. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Is that a faucet running?
That's not a faucet. That's a river rushing through the forest. Forest rivers provide over 100 million people with clean water to drink.
What? I can't hear you because of the vacuum.
That's not a vacuum. That's the trees in the forest cleaning up the air we breathe.
I didn't know the trees were so amazing.
Yep, and the forest gives us shade, trees to climb.
That's awesome. Let's go explore some more.
Visit the forest today and enjoy all it does, just for you. To learn more about the forest and find one near you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Back on Duck Insider, presented by On Point Community Credit Union. I'm Joey Mack inside the Country Financial Studio. Shadow Hills Country Club, offering the perfect combination of rural beauty, great golf, and affordable family entertainment that builds a lifetime of memories. Call for a tour today. Shadow Hills Country Club, a proud sponsor of Duck Insider. I would love to spend my weekend at Shadow Hills. Terrible golfer. I'm just not ever going to get there. I'm not. Speaking of golf, though, Caroline Inglis, as we take a look at the weekend schedule, today she shot even par, 50-mile-an-hour gusts in the Women's British Open. Can you believe that? 50-mile-an-hour, I guess I should believe that on an island. But 50-mile-an-hour gusts, Caroline Inglis, she's going to make the cut. Another opportunity for a payday. She made the cut last week. So on the LPGA and a Pro Duck in action, that's pretty cool. And I was talking to Terry Johns about this today. Wyndham Clark is also in action this weekend in the PGA playoff, which is pretty cool for a couple Pro Duck golfers. So for Caroline Inglis, though, making the cut, she's tied for 17th after today's round as part of the Women's British Open. I know they just call it the Open. I've always called it the British Open. Maybe that's wrong of me. I've always called it the British. You say that too, Scott? Okay. Your annual review also of, or I should say annual, your weekly review of the Oregon schedule for the week. You do have a little bit of bad news with Cole Irvin going down, but Kyle Garlick going back up for the Phillies. So kind of a 50-50 teeter-totter on that one. You got two Pro Ducks in Philadelphia, though, if you want to keep track of those guys. Kyle Garlick, man, I hope that he gets a chance to get some run in the outfield for the Phillies because I'll tell you what, that guy can hit. Carl, as we used to call him around Oregon baseball. I still don't actually remember why he got the nickname Carl. I don't think it was like Drayton Carlberg where somebody was like, you kind of look like the kid from Jimmy Neutron, but maybe. I'm going to have to ask around on Oregon baseball on that one. I actually don't remember how Kyle Garlick got that nickname. I digress. Also of note, this weekend, we do have some more WNBA action, but Ruthie Hebard, the only one who's healthy, though it does look like Satu Sabali is getting better and better. And Sabrina Ionescu, hopefully she'll be able to get back sooner than later for your WNBA Pro Ducks. That's what to watch this weekend. You know, I thought with the NBA draft lottery last night, it got me thinking like, oh, man, I got to look at some mock drafts and figure out where Peyton Pritchard's going to go. And I had a couple people ask me like, well, where do you think he's going to go? And I was like, man, I wish that I had an answer to that, but I just don't know enough about the NBA and prospects and everything else to give you an accurate representation. I will say, just having watched Peyton Pritchard and calling his games in his 4 years here at Oregon, I mean, I think Peyton's probably a late first-round pick. I think he's that good. Will he go higher than that? Maybe. I haven't seen him show up in any of the like lottery mock drafts that I've looked at. Which brings me to, I still don't know if I really love the lottery system in the NBA. I get why they do it, because you can avoid tanking, you know, because it's like, well, you're going to have a chance, and you don't just want to always have the number one pick if you're just bad for 3 straight years or whatever. But then also I think about, like, what if you're just absolutely the worst team ever, like in the history of the NBA, and the lottery has you end up as, like, the 3rd pick or the 4th pick? And then a team, you know, that was barely bad, who happens to get into the lottery, ends up with the number 1 pick. I know that the odds don't let that happen very often, and maybe I'm overthinking this, but I've always thought it was kind of interesting, the way that the NBA does it. I'm actually not a huge fan of it. We'll see. We'll see. There's a few Pac-12 guys, though, that are in that lottery conversation of where some of the top guys could go. Okongwu, one from USC that comes to mind. And, you know, with Peyton Pritchard, I tell you what, whoever drafts Peyton Pritchard, And I know the Suns had a lot of interest in him last year. Whoever drafts Peyton Pritchard's going to get a good one. Hard-working guy. And I get the feeling with the way Peyton evolved his game this past year, really adding that mid-range pull-up jump shot to his repertoire, I feel like Peyton's going to be a solid NBA player. You know, he doesn't maybe have the ceiling of a Bol, a Troy Brown Jr., but I think Peyton's going to be a really solid NBA player. And speaking of teams that lucked out, how about the Nuggets? Talk about lucking into a Bol pick in the second round. Yeah, Bol's going to be pretty darn good. So Peyton Pritchard, though, where does he end up? And for Duck fans, I know everybody, this is an obvious question. I say, hey, who do you think should take Peyton? And every Oregon fan's going to be like, well, the Blazers, obviously. You know? And I can understand that. Selfishly, growing up a Warriors fan, I think he'd be pretty darn good on the Warriors. He'd be pretty great wearing that Golden State uniform. And then, hey, I mean, you know, the Warriors feel that good, and maybe they'll take him with the second pick. But Peyton gets a nice payday. I can hope, right? I can hope. I think the Peyton Pritchard is going to end up somewhere, though, and be really successful. And what happens around the rest of the NBA heading into what will be a different season? You know, you've seen all the comments from Adam Silver saying, maybe December is a little too early to start the next season because, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the NBA and the NHL does with those season end and then starts because, you know, to be honest with you, and this is just my opinion, I think that college football can learn from that. You know, you play this spring season, you're going to learn, I think, a little bit about kind of the toll it takes. And football is a completely different game, don't get me wrong. But you're going to see just a little bit of the drain, I think, on the athletes. At the professional level, you can only imagine what it's going to do to student athletes at the collegiate level. Today's show brought to you by North Fork Public House, open for dine-in and takeout, northforkeugene.com. A little bit more on the weekend schedule, and I do want to acknowledge the California wildfires that are going on, and some here in Oregon as well. California, I think, is always going to get the big news and headlines, and my heart just goes out to everybody dealing with that in California. My family's been affected by it. My grandparents were evacuated, my aunt and uncle, and my cousins were evacuated. I hope that everybody's okay down there, and I know it's scary. My dad was a firefighter for his whole career, grew up firefighter's son, so this is something that I pay attention to maybe more than others, but really thinking about all those firefighters that are out there right now because that's scary stuff. That's really scary stuff. I grew up in Santa Cruz down in California, and the fires that are burning through there are something else. Really something else. So my heart goes out to everybody, and I hope that everybody's staying safe, thinking about everybody affected by that. And, man, it's, 2020. Heck of a year. Heck of a year. I'm Joey Mack. When we come back, going to wrap up Duck Insider for the week, presented by On Point Community Credit Union inside the Country Financial Studio. More after this on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
After 2 years of construction, my wife and I finally moved into our dream home. So when a bathtub fixture broke, causing major water damage, I was glad we had the home insurance protection we needed. How do you know your home is protected? Talk to a Country Financial rep like me, Nick Simon. We can help you understand your options and select coverages to meet your needs. Then if something happens to your home, you won't have any surprises. Need the right coverage for your home but not sure where to start? Visit TakeSimpleSteps.com or contact a local Country representative.
From the weight room to the classroom, on the field and off it, On Point proudly supports University of Oregon athletics because student athletes do so much more than bring us pride on game day. They bring our entire community together in Eugene and all across Oregon. So whether you're watching the game in the stadium, at home, or at your favorite local business, their success makes all of us stronger. On Point Community Credit Union. Join in. OnPointCU.com. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
This is Duck Insider. Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Hundo P. Hundo P. Adjective. Short for being 100% sure or certain. As in, if we get a puppy, I'll Hundo P always walk it.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
Back on Duck Insider, presented by On Point Community Credit Union. Joey Mack here with you inside the Country Financial Studio. You know, I was talking with Jerry and Jorgie and Terry over the last few days just about what we're going to do on Saturdays in the fall. We're still working on that. I think we got a really good idea for a replacement for the Oregon Football Coaches Show for fans. We're talking about doing a show. I think we're going to go forward with it. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here. I guess we'll find out if I get a call here in a few minutes. We're going to do a show called Great Ducks. And essentially what we're going to do is go in depth on the best players at every position in Oregon football history, quarterback, running back, do a show on each position. And Jerry and Jorgie have called for 30-something years, the two of them. This would have been the 31st season. Yeah, it'll be the 31st season in the spring. God, that's a long time. That's older than me. You know, they've been calling football games together longer than I've been alive.
That's pretty funny. When you actually stop to think
Is
about
it funny or is it, like, alarming?
It's pretty funny.
Yeah. You know, anyway, we've been talking about what we're going to do, and I think it'll be cool, though, to talk through that with those guys. I mean, honestly, just completely transparent here, I'm just going to sit here in the studio. We're probably going to have them come in on Zoom, obviously. And I'm going to be sitting here in the studio. I'm just going to be like, guys, tell me stories about whoever, you know? I guess I was going to say Norm Van Brocklin, but that would be a bad example.
I think Jerry and Jorgie have called most of the guys that we're going to see on these.
Most, yes. You know, like, tell me a Kellen Clemens story. We're going to hear from him on our series Great Moments with Great Ducks coming up in a little while on Duck Insider. But that's what we're going to do. And fans, I think that you'll really enjoy it. I mean, Jerry and Jorgie are the best. So they'll be able to tell some good stories. Yeah, it'll be good. Also, a really cool idea, mark your calendars. Acrobatics and Tumbling, you can follow them on Instagram because they're going to do a Q&A with a few different student athletes every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 a.m. Pretty cool idea. Get to know the student athletes on and off the mat for acrobatics and tumbling, if you will. Cool idea. Thanks to John Essick. Thanks, Scott Phillips. I'm Joey Mack. Have a good weekend.
I'm probably okay to have one more drink before I drive home. I'm probably okay. I open the window to stay alert. Probably okay. I just popped some gum in my mouth.
Step out of the car, please.
I probably